Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner MetaZone, Rovi, and Mscribe, and today we're going to be talking about NAT.
Good old natty, dude.
Natomatic.
It sure is. Almost as natomatic as peptides. I don't know. I just felt like saying
We're doing
that.
peptides now?
We probably should be, because it seems like everybody's on the way to, discovery of peptides and their tremendous value.
Really, it's peptides, the protocol on Bitcoin. Not
Peptide?
DMT on Bitcoin.
That should be the name of a new protocol.
That's what I'm saying.
Peptides. Peptides 20?
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, we haven't consumed any yet, but we may need to very soon. But maybe we don't, because we're DMT consumers.
Yeah, right? We're well enhanced in DMT.
You see that Brian, what's his name?
Brian Armstrong? No, Brian Johnson.
The vampire guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. DMT definitely changed him, dude. He's like publicly declaring his
allegiance.
His fuckscapades. You didn't see that tweet? Where he's like, yeah, I just fucked my girlfriend last night.
Wow.
You didn't see that? Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Is his girlfriend the CEO of his company, or? I
think it's that girl who always shadows him around. I think.
Yeah, I think
her name is Kate. He's like, yeah, I just had sex with Kate. It was great, by the way. Good night. That was just DMT definitely opened his third eye, dude. He's a totally different man now. It's pretty wild.
DMT did the exact same thing to us.
Right, but yeah,
it's just
a different kind of substance.
That's right.
So yeah, apparently it's changing others as well.
Yeah,
look what's happening, dude. This is insane.
Yeah, so this reminds me of the early NAT mint days where we were in the Chinese were in a room. There were several of them, and they're all chain smoking.
Yes,
and minting NAT.
That. I was like, dude, this is becoming a global phenomenon, and it hasn't even taken off yet. But here we are, fast forward 2 years into the future, 2.5 years, something like that. And the Chinese community is up in arms again. They're gathering and they're whiteboard sessioning. I always like to see a nice whiteboard sesh.
Oh yeah.
Somehow we need to do that ourselves.
That's bullish.
We need to get a whiteboard.
Do a whole sesh on
it with multiple sesh. I think whiteboards serve critical. I mean, have you not seen Professor Jiang? I don't think you have.
It sounds familiar though.
It's a guy, a Chinese YouTuber. I think
you showed me once. Yeah.
He also discovered the superpower of whiteboards, dude.
Does it have to be a whiteboard? Could it be a digital one?
He has a digital one.
Oh, okay.
It's like a smart.
That's my guy.
Smart board, but he's still on there, writing on it. Like a professor. He's a high school teacher, but he teaches now about macroeconomics and geopolitics, and he's very famous now.
Oh, that's cool. Because of the whiteboard.
It's all the whiteboard. We saw Charles Hoskinson do it.
Yeah. What's that guy from EOS? Dan
Larimer?
Larimer?
He wasn't that much of a whiteboarder, but he did.
I've seen some whiteboards.
Oh, yeah. He did scribble from time to time. I remember. So it's a very powerful mechanic, and we need to weaponize it.
I mean, we can absolutely do it.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, that's a backlog story.
Yeah. So when the Chinese gather, you must pay attention, and they've gathered.
Yeah, so I don't exactly know what's being discussed here.
Well, there's a comment here that says, so what does he say? He mentioned that he's been continuously converting Bitcoin to NAT over a period of time.
Wow. And I'm sure, part of this whiteboard session is explaining the thesis or the theory behind that. Why is it potentially... It's probably part of it is explaining the problem, right?
Yeah, so the reason why we have such conviction in NAT is because of the problem, right? If you do the math, Bitcoin's value really comes from its security. And right now, the security is completely based on the revenue of the miners. And the revenue of the miners gets cut in half every 4 years. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that mitigates that is Bitcoin going up. And so how do you mitigate that when you have exponential decay and the only thing that is propping up the security is the value of Bitcoin? And so the only way to do that is you expect Bitcoin to exponentially grow. But even if it does that, you're using the same security budget to secure an exponentially growing asset.
Yeah, which poses a security threat vector, right? Meaning the cost of or the opportunity of attack goes up over time. So yeah, therefore you can't subject Bitcoin to this kind of degree of risk because, if there is a successful attack, it likely degrades a lot of the confidence in what that value premise behind Bitcoin is.
So yeah, that's a good point. And Ethereum, even Bitcoin itself, they've suffered attacks before.
Yeah.
And they've done pretty well afterwards. The problem with this one is that with enough time, it'll continuously get compromised because the security continuously declines exponentially.
Right.
And then eventually you won't have any confidence in Bitcoin. This is not just like a regular hack.
Yeah, it's true.
That you could just recover from. This is a systemic issue.
Pretty much. It's a realization that the economic model, I guess, it's flawed, right? Which is not something we discovered. People have known about this since 2011 days. On the Bitcoin Talk forums, it's been discussed, widely debated. What are we going to do about this, guys? And it's been mostly ever since then kind of like swept under the rug because of that price action impact of like what are the last 15 to 17 years the price trajectory has been, right? It's been more than 2x.
Yeah, it's been exponential for sure.
Yeah, so it's like it doesn't feel as dramatic of a concern until that compression happens, whereas like every 4 years we're not seeing more than 2x results in the price, which
correct.
Right now we're kind of in the midst of that. Like we barely got a 2x from the previous all-time high.
Yeah.
So miners are, and then to add the competition of AI
that's right.
on top of that. So there's a lot of problems. And so the people who are deeply aware of that, it's the NAT community, right? Because like that basically is the gospel here. That's, I'm assuming, is being delivered across the world.
Yeah,
right?
We're talking about math here. Math transcends language.
Yeah.
Right? With math, you'd probably be able to talk to aliens, right? And so this is what we're seeing here is like just you explain the math to people and like, NAT solves this problem. And so the way the NAT solves this problem is it completely decouples itself from like the decay, the exponential decay of Bitcoin's subsidy. It decouples it, and now you have a more stable subsidy to Bitcoin that doesn't decline, right, over time. And so,
what do you mean decline? You mean the supply, like
the value?
Oh,
the value of the revenues of Bitcoin does not decline over time.
Yes, because it doesn't have that scheduled.
That's right.
Emission cut every 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what we mean by NAT is taking a life of its own. Here it is. Like, this is the life. So it's like, this is what's shocking to us. It's like, we almost feel like we don't really have to do much or like talk much. I think there's enough information out there. And the good news is there's others, as like Rome, shout out to Rome. They're packaging their own information like relays, right?
Yeah.
We built NAT GMI. Like, that's our attempt at aggregating as much useful information and data as possible to kind of like, convey this reality, even though people want to believe it doesn't exist. It's like, well, it does. Here's the data to suggest improve it.
Yeah.
Others are taking up that torch and like, creating more rallying points, which is, in my opinion, that's the most valuable thing. Right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's what the community is supposed to do. They're just supposed to come up with their own way of relaying this information.
Yeah, and if you actually go to so it's called what?
NAT Saves BTC.com.
Yeah, he's created 15 other rallying languages.
Yeah.
Which is even more useful. So he's packaged this into like different, cultural nuggets, which is for us tremendously valuable because I mean, we're typical Americans. So actually you speak 2 languages. I only speak 1. So I'm that typical American.
Flawed, dude.
I'm that guy who only speaks English. If you live almost anywhere else on the earth, you're not like that. You speak multiple languages.
True.
This is like a pure American phenomena. But so yeah, we struggle to like, package information in a palatable way that crosses borders. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So this is tremendously valuable and useful.
Yeah, so for example, once you pick your language and you get to see a lot of the metrics that we put on NAT GMI plus some here, and you got the price of Bitcoin, you got the market cap value, 26 million, which is still very, very low, but it's climbing. We're going to show you that it's climbing. We have the block production widget here.
Yeah, I see 2 subsidies there, dude.
Yep, there's 2 of them.
Yeah, and pretty soon, the speculation, I guess, is that, a specific miner pool participant will see the same thing.
Yeah, correct.
That's what we're hearing through the grapevine, right?
Yeah, it might be somewhere on this list already.
Oh, really?
Somewhere.
Okay, well, we'll get into that.
Yeah. So did you see this Easter egg in the background? Hold on, let me see if I can't zoom in.
Oh, that's the little cult table, dude.
Yeah. That's Iman in the background, Satoshi, and then myself.
Yeah, there's no way you could see that. If you if you know, you know, I guess. I mean, isn't that the NAT GMI banner? It used to be.
Yeah.
On Twitter,
No,
on X. Or maybe
I think it is. I think it still is. I don't know.
Okay. So look at this. There's a lot of information here, dude.
Yeah, the inverse relationship between Bitcoin computing power and NAT production. Yeah, if you guys don't know NAT, you got a lot of reading to do. It's very, very interesting from like an economic standpoint, a crypto standpoint. Like this is a genuine, real token.
Mm-hmm.
It's not some shitter that you launch on pump.fun or anything like that.
Yeah, it's I guess what you would categorize if you're like observing the pendulum that swings in crypto. This is the pendulum in full like fundamental problem solution territory, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is like the origins of crypto. You know, that's what Bitcoin is. Ethereum is like a solution to traditional finance, and it's starting to get, you know, wide adoption.
Yeah, man. The stable coins have generated like 26 trillion in volume over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's tremendous, right? It's just wait to see what happens once like all of finance, like Wall Street included, is now operating on these rails and through these vehicles. And it's basically been confirmed, just despite what prices look like and what crypto Twitter sentiment is.
Yeah.
These are actual developments happening in real time, and, you know, regulation being built around all this stuff. So,
that's right.
You know, if you've been here long enough the way we have, this is why bear markets, you know, we have no soul left to really react to any stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, it's just whatever. We know what's coming ahead, right? This is just temporary pain.
The bear markets to us is probably the most interesting because that's where you actually find substance.
Yeah, typically. Yeah, in the last bear market, we found ordinal space.
Yeah.
And then that's what got us to the point where we developed something like NAT with our community.
That's right.
Found the problem of, you know, Bitcoin. Because if we weren't paying attention last bear market, we'd still be as blind as everyone else, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So stay tuned to the podcast because we're going to go and show an example of what is not substance.
Okay. I don't even know what you're talking about, so I'll also stay tuned.
We'll find out together.
Yeah, correct.
All right. So in other news, SATFLOW supports TAP protocol.
Yes.
And
this is also a big deal.
Yeah, so SATFLOW supporting TAP, and the first token here is DMT NAT.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically list your NAT here and start trading.
We got a new surface area, right? And that's another big part of this whole unraveling story, right? It's not just finding a solution to a problem. It's like
industry adoption.
Yeah, expanding access and awareness to this thing, and then therefore making it more liquid, you know, more viable in the actual market. Because part of what makes this actually sustainable and work is miners need, you know, an exit.
Yeah, liquid access to
the way they do for Bitcoin.
To pay the bills, yeah.
Yeah, they need to be able to spend their Bitcoin whenever needed to maintain their operations, right? So we got to get NAT to that same point.
Yeah, so you're super early still.
Super early, yeah.
All right. All right, so this is something interesting. So this is a member of the Chinese community. He says, September 2025, SpiderPool reached a cooperation agreement with TAP Protocol. After 6 months of development, the companion mining NAT distribution has entered the final testing phase. This further demonstrates SpiderPool's friendly attitude towards ecosystem development. SpiderPool is a mature mining pool with solid technology, top rankings, and ongoing ecosystem expansion, especially after the Bitcoin halving, effectively helps miners boost their earnings through additional token NAT rewards and other methods. So he must know something that some degree of inside information, but SpiderPool has been working with TAP for a while, and they're working on a distribution path for their pool participants to distribute not only Bitcoin, but NAT to the pool providers.
Yeah, which is really cool. I mean, they have a lot of participants, I think we looked it up once. I want to say it's in the tens of thousands. I'm not really sure.
I think so.
but it's a lot. So that's a lot of new exposure to people, to NAT, right? It's like, oh, I didn't know I was going to receive a new token.
Yeah.
So maybe let's do some due diligence on what this token is and what it's about. Oh, like we just saw, there's multiple rallying points or relay points of information to discover the value of NAT. So who knows? That could have like an explosive after effect to the price. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why people are.
Yeah. So once this starts happening, actually just show you NAT GMI as an example here. Give me a second here. Yeah, so if you go to natgmi.com and you scroll down, there's a list of miners who are engaging with the NAT token. SpiderPool being one that's going to be distributing to their pool providers pretty soon. And
you think that's another like column we need to add? Where it's like distributed? Or
so these miners that have engaged in that, they're on the eastern side of the planet. Right. And so as soon as SpiderPool starts distributing, guess what the other ones are going to have to do? Because they're going to have to distribute as well, because they're competing for the same demographic of people.
I see.
Right. And so SpiderPool being the first one is a big deal.
Yeah, but I mean like column is in like, there's the adoption column, which signals that there's been some sort of interaction with TAP protocol.
Oh, I see.
To move the NAT asset. Maybe it's like
distributed.
Yeah, or like integrated.
Maybe integrated, yeah.
Yeah, something. Or maybe when you click on the actual miner, what happens when you click on the miner here?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, no. Well, maybe we just click on one and then something is on display. It's like the actual how much NAT has been distributed or something.
Yeah, a lot of these are pools themselves, so they're going to have to distribute.
Yeah, like they probably won't provide some kind of API we could plug into, right? Or you don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's NAT. I mean, it's starting to spread. We got, let me show you the chart here. So over the last 3 months has been on the way up, and it's been, the last 3 months has been pretty ugly in the wider crypto space.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Alone, this looks like a pretty healthy chart, like experiencing its like maturation and growth. But but then you bring in the context of not just all of crypto, but like, all the other Bitcoin native stuff.
Yeah, they're all down 90 plus
on a death spiral.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the signal of like, we're in a bear market. So the people who are left are they're seeking fundamentals, I think.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, right? That's why you're seeing all of a sudden the tensor and their subnets are getting recognized. Because it's a bear market and like, the hype cycle is kind of drowned out.
Good point.
So people are seeking like actual technologies and again, problem solution tokens, right? So,
yeah. That's why we like the bear market.
Yeah. It drowns out all the craziness and then you can actually see, what's real out there.
Yeah.
So, but as we know, the noise is going to come back.
Yeah.
So prepare for it, which we will.
Yeah. I mean, just stick with the fundamentals. I mean, just make it easier for yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so really good progress. There's going to be more news coming out for the NAT token. I mean, on top of this, NAT.FUN is coming out pretty soon. Yeah.
So all that, watch our previous videos about NAT.FUN. It's all connected.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, right?
It's another problem solution platform.
It is to an industry problem for NFTs and like just the launch mechanisms.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about in the podcast, but that's even that is connected to NAT, the ultimate purpose of securing Bitcoin.
Hence, right? NAT.FUN.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for us. If you have any questions on the NAT token, please let us know in the comment section below. Appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.